Unit 4, Lesson 3, the Quadratic Formula. Now, in the last lesson, and toward the end, we did an example where we couldn't factor the quadratic equation, but there were still two solutions, and those solutions were decimals. So I'm going to show you how to find those two solutions when you cannot factor a quadratic in standard form. Okay? So I'm going to introduce to you a formula, and this is called the quadratic formula. And the quadratic formula, again, it is to help you find the x-intercepts or find the solutions of a parabola in standard form. Okay, so remember, standard form is this: ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Okay, this is my standard form. Now, the quadratic formula that will help you find the x-intercepts is this: x equals negative b plus or minus. That means we're going to be doing both cases, both plus and minus, and getting two different answers. The square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c. Keep in mind the square root sign, it's all over this whole expression. So you do b squared minus 4 times a times c, and whatever number you get there, you take the square root of that. And then everything here is divided by 2a. And a, b, and c all come from the a, b, and c in the standard form. Okay? Now, right now, it's not critical that you understand how we created this formula. It's a formula that has been used for a long time and discovered long ago. I'm going to show you how to derive this formula in a future unit. Okay, but for now, it's just a matter of here's the formula, let's memorize it, let's use it, and solve some quadratics. Okay? So let's look at example 1. Determine the x-intercepts of y equals 3x squared minus 24x plus 7. So here's an equation in standard form. A, b, and c. So 3 is a, b is negative 24, and c is 7. Okay? And if you want the x-intercepts, that means y has to be 0. So what we really are doing is solving 0 equals 3x squared minus 24x plus 7. It doesn't matter that I put the 0 on the left side. The right side is my quadratic equation. That's what I'm going to be solving. Now, if you attempted to use product sum, well, a times c is 3 times 7, which is 21. So you want to find two factors that multiply to give you 21, and those same two factors will add together to give you negative 24. You're going to be scratching your head a long time, not being able to come up with what two numbers that will satisfy both. There isn't a pair of numbers that multiply to give you 21 and add up to negative 24. So in this particular scenario, you're going to want to use the quadratic formula. Okay? Now don't be afraid of this formula. Okay? The more you use it, the more comfortable you will be. It just takes practice. If you're wondering, is this hard to memorize? Not really. The more you practice it, the more it becomes very easy to remember. Okay? And so here's the formula once more. Okay? So here's how you apply it. So you say x equals, my b value is negative 24. Okay? So it's minus 24. The equation already has a built-in minus, so you're going to be doing a double negative. So negative b means you're negative, and then in brackets, what's my b value? My b value is another negative 24. Okay? Plus or minus square root of b squared, so negative 24 in brackets squared, minus 4 times a is 3, times c, which is 7. Okay, and make sure you extend your square root sign to cover everything. It's proper form. And then all of that is divided by 2a. So 2 times a is 3, so 2 times 3. Okay? Then we start simplifying. So x equals negative of negative 24 is positive 24 plus or minus 24 squared. If you did negative 24 times negative 24, you would get 576 minus 4 times 3 times 7 is 84. All of that is under a square root sign. And then all of everything on top is divided by 6, because 2 times 3 is 6. Okay. Next step, let's start simplifying some more. So 24 plus or minus 576 minus 84 is 492. That's square root and divided by 6. Okay. Now here's where we break it up into 2. Okay. So we can break it up into 2. We're going to say here x equals 24 plus the square root of 492 divided by 6. Okay. And if you did that in your calculator, so you do the square root of 492, add that to 24, whatever result you get, you divide that by 6, and your answer should be 7.697. So I encourage you to pause the video and just do it yourself and check to see you get the same number. If you don't, you're doing the order of the operations incorrectly. Okay. Okay, and the second solution, x equals 24, and instead of plus, you're going to say minus the square root of 492 divided by 6, and that answer is going to be 0.303. Okay, and you can check your answer using Desmos. So if I plot this equation on Desmos, let me erase this old one here. So the equation is 3x squared minus 24x plus 7. And so here is one of the x-intercepts here at 0.303, which is exactly what we got in the quadratic formula. And here's the other one at, oops, zoom in so we can see that better. Right there, 7.697, which is exactly the numbers that we have here. So we verified that using Desmos. What am I verifying again? X-intercepts, the y value is 0, right? Okay, the y value is 0, as we said up here, the y value is 0. Okay, and that's how you use the quadratic formula. Let's do another example. Example 2, determine the x-intercepts of this equation. So y equals 2x squared plus 9x plus 6, okay? And this will also work if the equation is factorable. Even if it's factorable or not factorable, the quadratic equation can still be used. So you just have to identify a, b, and c, right? So a is 2, b is 9, and c is 6. So I'm going to write down the quadratic formula. X equals negative b, so it's negative of my b value. My b value is 9, so negative 9 plus or minus the square root of b squared, so 9 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 2, times c, which is 6. I'm putting these numbers in brackets because to show I'm multiplying. Okay, and then write the square root sign over all the numbers. Then everything is divided by 2a, which is 2 times 2. Simplifying is my next step, so negative 9 plus or minus 9 squared is 81. 4 times 2 times 6 is 48, so minus 48. And square root of all of that divided by 2 times 2, which is 4 in the bottom. And then my next step, simplify some more. So negative 9, x equals negative 9, plus or minus 81 minus 48 is 33. So the square root of 33 all over 4. And then I can split my answer into two parts. So here I can say x equals negative 9 plus the square root of 33 over 4. And that's equal to negative 0.814. My other answer is x equals negative 9 minus the square root of 33. And all of that's divided by 4. And that's equal to negative 3.687. Okay, and again, I say to all of you is pause the video, double check you can do this calculation in your calculator and get these results. Okay, so you should be inputting the numerator first, -9 plus the square root of 33, and then whatever answer you have, divide that by 4. Okay, try not to put it all on one line because your calculator might do things incorrectly. Okay, all right, another example. Example 3, solve 4x squared minus 12x equals -9. So remember what I said about equations. One side has to equal to 0. So you have to rearrange this. Okay, and so if I rearrange this, if I say, I'll leave the two terms on the left, so 4x squared minus 12x. It's going to add 9 to both sides, so plus 9 equals 0. So a equals 4, b equals -12, and c equals 9. And now it turns out you can factor this one. This is a factorable equation, also factorable. Okay, and if you factored it, you would get 2x minus 3 times 2x minus 3 equals 0, and you can solve for x that way. However, that's factorable because it's a perfect square trinomial. Okay, 4x squared and 9 are perfect squares. But I will tell you that even though it is factorable, you can use the quadratic formula any time. Okay, so if I use the quadratic formula here, I would say x equals negative b, so negative of my b value, which is -12, so again, double negative, be careful, plus or minus the square root of -12 squared, which is my b squared, minus 4 times a is 4 again, and c is 9. Extend your square root sign. All of this is divided by 2a, so 2 times 4. Do some simplification. X equals negative of -12 is positive 12, plus or minus 12 squared is 144. 4 times 4 times 9 is also 144, so minus 144. Okay, like that. And all of that divided by 8. And then you notice 144 minus 144 is 0, so x equals 12 plus or minus square root of 0 all over 8. And the square root of 0 is just 0. Okay, so now what happens to the plus or minus? It goes away. Plus or minus 0 doesn't really matter, right? So what x ends up being is 12 over 8, or you can reduce that to 3 over 2. And you only have one solution in this case. Okay, if the inside of your square root sign becomes a 0, you're only going to end up with one solution. And that's what exactly we have here with factored form. Right? Factored form is just 2x minus 3 in brackets squared equals 0. If I solve for x, I would get 2x equals positive 3. And x, and then divide both sides by 2, you get x equals 3 over 2. Okay, and so what that looks like, if you visualize it, it's a parabola whose vertex touches the x-axis just one time. And at that point here, at 1.3 over 2 is the same thing as saying 1.5, and the y value is 0. Okay, let's do one more. Determine the x-intercepts of y equals x squared minus 4x plus 7. Don't forget there's the invisible 1. Okay, so a is equal to 1, b is equal to -4, and c is equal to positive 7. Okay, if I take the quadratic formula and try to solve this, so x equals negative b, so negative of -4, plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is -4 squared, minus 4ac, so 4 times a, so 4 times 1, times c, which is 7, and all of that divided by 2 times 1. Okay, let's see what happens. Simplifying, x equals negative of -4 is positive 4, plus or minus. Inside the square root, I have -4 squared, which is 16, positive 16. 4 times 1 times 7 is 28, so minus 28. All of that's under a square root, divided by 2 times 1, which is 2. Okay. Now, What's 16 minus 28? Well, that's a negative number, negative 12. Don't try and change that to a positive, okay? The problem with a negative number is that if you took the square root of a negative number, you can't get an answer. There is no answer. You cannot, so you can't square root a negative, okay? And so if you can't square root of a negative, then uh, you have no solutions. Therefore, no solution. It's not possible. Your parabola may look something like this, where it doesn't cross the x-axis. There are no solutions. Okay? And it turns out that pattern keeps going. Anything that you calculate under the square root will help you determine whether your parabola has two solutions, one solution, or no solutions. And this thing under the square root is called the discriminant. So b squared minus 4ac, this is called the discriminant. Okay, and if this b squared minus 4ac, if it's negative, if this is negative, then you will always have no solutions. You can stop and you can say no solutions. All right. Okay, and that ends this video.